Imagine, just for a second, waking up in the emergency room.
Okay, yeah, that's never a good start.
Right. So the fluorescent lights are blinding you. There are monitors beeping everywhere.
Very disorienting.
Exactly. And your chest is incredibly tight. So a doctor walks in, looks down at a tablet, and says they actually can't give you the life-saving medication you need.
Wait, why not?
Because your chart says you are deathly allergic to it.
Oh, wow.
But you aren't allergic to it. You know that for a fact, right?
Yeah.
So you try to argue.
Of course you do. It's your body.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the doctor just points to the screen. To the hospital system, I mean, the unassailable truth is that you have this allergy.
Right.
And it also says you have a history of drug abuse and, get this, a completely different blood type.
That is terrifying.
It really is. And why is this happening? Because 3 years ago, a criminal stole your identity.
I see.
Yeah, they used your insurance card to get prescription pills, and they permanently contaminated your medical file.
So the person on that screen isn't even you.
Exactly. But to the world that matters, the screen is right, and you are wrong.
I mean, that is one of the most terrifying scenarios a human being can face.
Yeah.
And the scary part is, it happens far more often than we realize.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
No?
Which is why today we are opening up a massive stack of sources.
We really are.
We've got clinical trauma research, behavioral science, legal frameworks, and even centuries of philosophy.
Right, because the mission for this deep dive is to basically map out the anatomy of the self.
Exactly. We want to know, what is it? How is it built?
And most importantly, what happens when who you are is hijacked or shattered or just stolen from you?
Yeah. Because we walk around every day assuming our identity is this solid, immovable object.
Right, like a boulder. I am me, you are you.
Right. We think of it as our physical body, our memories, or maybe the 9-digit social security number attached to our bank accounts.
Yeah, the paperwork of being alive.
Exactly. But the underlying theme of all these papers is that identity is largely an illusion.
Which is a lot to process.
It is. And if you're listening to this right now, the unsettling truth is that you usually only fully understand how fragile your identity is.
Once it's been fractured.
Exactly. Once it's completely fractured.
I have to admit, looking through this stack of research today, it really shook me.
How so?
Well, just realizing how vulnerable we are. I mean, from toxic relationships to massive data breaches.
Right. That fragility is what makes this deep dive so vital.
Yeah.
We aren't just going to talk about the abstract concept of self today.
Yeah, we are getting practical.
Very. We are going to blend the structural, legal rights you have to protect your data with the deep clinical psychology of how to protect your mind.
Right. We're looking at the hidden interpersonal devastation of identity theft.
And the neurobiology of childhood trauma that fractures the self from the inside out.
Yeah, and the literal frameworks required to rebuild who you are from the absolute ground up.
It's a huge undertaking. So to understand how identity breaks, we first have to figure out how it's actually built.
Right. And I want to start with the philosophy papers in our stack for this.
Good place to start.
Because, you know, people have been arguing about this for centuries.
Oh, millennia, really?
Right. So looking at the metaphysical architecture of the self, we essentially have 3 foundational ways to view identity.
Let's lay them out.
Starting with Cartesian substance dualism, we are talking about Descartes here. You know, I think, therefore I am.
Right. Let's unpack what Descartes was actually arguing.
Let's break it down.
So, substance dualism is the belief that the self is an indestructible, immaterial soul.
Okay.
In this framework, your core self, the true you, is entirely independent of your physical body.
So it's separate.
Completely. Your body might age, it might get injured, it might even perish, but the you inside the machine remains identical to itself across all temporal stages.
I mean, it's an all-or-nothing persistence.
Exactly.
Meaning, under Cartesian dualism, reclaiming your identity after trauma is almost mathematically unnecessary.
Because the core self can't be touched.
Right. It cannot be fundamentally fragmented by a hacker stealing your credit score.
Or by a traumatic event.
Exactly. It's safe in this metaphysical vault.
That is the logical conclusion of dualism, yeah.
But, I mean, I'm going to push back on that immediately.
I figured you might.
Because it completely contradicts the clinical trauma research we have sitting right here.
Right. It's a comforting thought.
Yeah, to believe I have an untouchable soul. But it doesn't match the lived experience of someone whose life has just been shattered.
No, it doesn't at all.
Right.
Yeah.
If my identity can't be broken, why do I feel so broken?
That is the crucial question.
When someone betrays you, you don't feel like your immaterial soul is perfectly intact. You feel like a piece of you has been literally annihilated.
Which is exactly why philosophy had to evolve.
Right.
And that leads us to the second framework, the locking psychological criterion.
Okay, John Locke.
Yeah. Locke looked at Descartes and essentially said, that doesn't hold up to human experience.
He called it out.
He did. Locke argued that personal identity isn't based on some invisible, immaterial substance.
What is it based on, then?
It is based on psychological continuity.
Okay.
Specifically, your overlapping chains of consciousness, reflective memory, beliefs, and intentions.
So in Locke's view, you are basically the sum total of your memories.
Pretty much.
Like, I am the same person who recorded a deep dive yesterday because I remember doing it.
Yes, memory is the glue that binds the past self to the present self.
Right.
But let's look at the terrifying vulnerability in Locke's theory.
Yeah, because there's a huge hole there.
Exactly. If identity is memory, what happens when trauma suppresses those memories?
Oh, wow.
What happens with dissociative amnesia?
Or, I mean, looking at it biologically, what happens with Alzheimer's disease?
Right. If the chain of memory is broken, Locke's theory suggests the identity is actually literally broken.
That raises some wild moral implications.
Massive ones.
Because, think about it. If someone commits a crime, but then suffers a severe brain injury and genuinely loses all memory of their past,
Right.
under Locke's theory, the person sitting in the courtroom is not the person who committed the crime.
Exactly. They are a different identity entirely.
That creates massive paradoxes, legally and morally.
It really does. And that brings us to the most radical paper in this section of our stack.
Okay, lay it on me.
Derek Parfit and his theory of psychological reductionism.
Okay, this one actually melted my brain a little bit when I was reading it.
It does that to a lot of people.
Parfit basically throws out both the soul and the strict memory chain, right?
He does. He totally throws them out.
Wow.
Parfit argued that the self isn't a static entity at all.
Right.
It is not a further fact or a separately existing thing that you could put under a microscope.
So what is it?
Instead, identity is a continuous process of physical and mental events.
A process. Okay.
Yeah. He called this relation R, which stands for psychological connectedness and continuity.
Relation.
Right. And the crucial mechanism here is that relation R holds by degrees.
Okay, wait, what do you mean by holds by degrees?
Well, think about Parfit's famous teletransporter thought experiment.
Oh, I love this one.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Imagine you step into a machine on Earth. It scans every atom of your body, destroys you, and instantly beams the data to Mars.
Okay.
And on Mars, a second machine rebuilds you out of new matter.
Sounds like sci-fi.
Very. Now, the person on Mars wakes up, remembers walking into the machine on Earth, have your exact personality, your fears, your loves.
Right.
Is that person you?
I mean, my gut reaction is to say no.
Why no?
Because the original me was destroyed on Earth. The guy on Mars is just a flawless copy.
And under strict identity theories, you'd be absolutely right.
Right.
But Parfit argues that asking, is it strictly me, is actually the wrong question entirely.
What's the right question?
What matters is survival.
Survival.
Yeah. The person on Mars has absolute psychological continuity with you.
Wow.
They have relation R. Therefore, you survive, even if strict identity is lost.
So the practical application for us is this. You are not the exact same person you were 10 years ago.
Or even 10 minutes ago.
Right, because your cells have died and regenerated. Your beliefs have shifted.
Exactly.
So if we apply Parfit to someone recovering from intense trauma,
Yeah, think about what that does.
it takes a massive weight off their shoulders.
It really does.
Reclaiming your identity isn't about chasing this elusive, static, original self that you lost in childhood.
Or lost before the fraud happened.
Right. You don't have to rebuild the exact same house.
No.
It's about rebuilding that continuous process, preserving relation R, and adapting to the present. You are allowed to be a new iteration.
That is the exact clinical takeaway.
It's incredibly freeing.
But to really synthesize all this philosophy into a human life, we have to look at how we construct the daily experience of being alive.
Right. The day-to-day.
And for that, the research points us to philosopher Paul Ricoeur.
Oh, and his concept of narrative identity.
Exactly. Ricoeur said that human life is not just a biological sequence of events.
Yo.
It is a narrative. It is a plot.
The brain as a storyteller.
Constantly. Just as an author synthesizes characters, random events, and accidents into a meaningful novel.
Right.
Your mind is constantly synthesizing the chaos of daily life into a coherent life story.
Okay, and Ricoeur divided identity into two distinct parts, right?
Yes, idem and ips.
I want to make sure I have this right. So idem is Latin for sameness.
Correct.
This is your DNA, your fingerprints, your static character traits.
Yeah, it answers the question, what am I?
But ips translates to selfhood.
Yes, ipsy is dynamic.
It changes.
Exactly. It is your evolving identity based on the promises you make, the responsibilities you take, and the choices you enact over time.
So it answers the question, who am I?
Right. You can maintain idem, your fingerprint is the same, while entirely changing your ipsy over the course of a lifetime.
Okay, so the psychological mechanism here is that we are constantly writing our own ips.
Yes, we are authoring our plot.
But here is the piece that really gets to the heart of our mission today.
Go for it.
If identity is just a story, just a psychological process,
Yeah.
why does it hurt so deeply on a visceral, physical level when someone challenges or steals it?
That's a great question. How do you visualize it?
Well, imagine you are an author writing your autobiography.
Okay.
You've spent your whole life carefully crafting the plot, understanding your motivations, building your character arc.
A lot of work goes into that.
Exactly. Then one night, a malicious stranger breaks into your house, steals your manuscript, and completely rewrites the middle chapters.
Well, it's brutal.
Right. They change your motivations, they add crimes you didn't commit, they alter your medical history.
They mess up the whole plot.
Exactly. And when you wake up and read what they wrote, it's not just a clerical error.
No.
It feels like a violation of your reality. Your plot has been hijacked.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanism of psychological trauma.
Does.
Yes. Trauma occurs when an event happens that absolutely cannot be integrated into your existing plot.
Because it doesn't make sense.
Right. It is too horrific,
Yeah.
too chaotic, or too violating.
It doesn't fit the story.
Exactly. It remains what Ricoeur might call a foreign body, disrupting the narrative flow.
A foreign body.
Yeah. The brain simply cannot synthesize it.
Right.
When your external narrative is hijacked by malicious forces, your brain triggers a profound systemic threat response.
Which leads us directly into the modern crisis of identity theft.
It does.
And this is where the research completely flipped my perspective today.
Really? How so?
Well, usually if someone brings up identity theft, we think of it as a massive headache.
A bureaucratic nightmare.
Yeah. You know, you have to spend hours on hold with your credit card company.
Where you have to freeze your Equifax report.
Exactly. Maybe you lose a few $100. We view it strictly as a financial inconvenience.
But the clinical research in our stack, especially the extensive longitudinal work by the Identity Theft Resource Center, reveals a very different reality.
Yeah, it's way darker.
Much darker. Fraud victimization is a profound interpersonal trauma.
Interpersonal. Wow.
Yes. The psychological sequelae, the after effects, mirror the symptoms of physical assault.
Physical assault? Are
Yeah.
you serious?
I am. Victims experience systemic shock, severe hypervigilance, insomnia, intrusive thoughts, and clinical depression.
Because it's not just about the money.
No, not at all.
It's about a total sudden loss of control over your ipsy, over your selfhood.
Exactly.
You lose access to your finances, sure, but you also lose your reputation.
And your sense of safety in society.
Right. And all of it happens without any warning.
Just suddenly out of nowhere.
And here is what makes it so psychologically damaging. The perpetrator is often completely faceless.
Right, the invisible threat.
Wait, I shouldn't say exactly. What I mean is the invisibility of the threat is what breaks your trust in the world.
Because you don't know who to blame?
Right. You start wondering if the person standing next to you in the grocery store is the one who ruined your credit score.
Yeah.
You don't have a specific monster to fight, so the monster becomes everywhere.
And the data shows an even darker side to this.
Oh, man. What is it?
A significant percentage of identity theft is actually perpetrated by people known to the victim.
Are you kidding me?
No. Parents opening credit cards in their toddlers' names. Siblings using each other's social security numbers.
That's evil.
It happens all the time. And when that happens, the sense of betrayal is multiplied exponentially.
I can't even imagine.
You are no longer just dealing with a financial crime. You are dealing with profound betrayal trauma from your core attachment figures.
Which brings us back to that terrifying ER scenario we opened the show with.
Medical identity theft.
Yeah. I had no idea how pervasive this was until I read these sources.
It is incredibly common.
This is when someone uses your name, your social security number, or your insurance info to get medical treatment, prescription drugs, or even massive surgeries.
And the mechanics of medical identity theft are complex and highly resistant to correction.
How so?
But the research outlines it in 4 distinct phases.
Okay, let's go through them.
First is data acquisition.
Okay, so stealing the info.
Right. The thief acquires your credentials. This could be through a massive hospital data breach, a phishing scam, or simply swiping your physical insurance card from a gym locker.
Wow, just from a gym locker.
Easily. Second is exploitation.
Okay.
And this isn't just about stealing a free checkup.
What are they doing?
They use your stolen credentials to acquire highly controlled substances like opioids.
Oh, man.
Or they receive expensive elective procedures.
Right.
Or they file massive false insurance claims.
Then comes phase 3.
Yeah.
And this is the part that genuinely sent a shiver down my spine. Record contamination.
It's insidious.
We talked about Recur's idea of a foreign body in your narrative.
Yes.
Record contamination is a literal digital foreign body.
Exactly right.
Every single time that thief goes to a doctor pretending to be you, their biological data is permanently inserted into your HIPAA-protected electronic health records.
It becomes part of your file.
Right. Their fake diagnoses, their severe allergies, their incorrect blood types, their psychiatric histories.
It's all there.
It all becomes your official medical truth.
Yes.
So let's break down the why here. Why is this so dangerous?
Well, think about what a doctor does with that info.
Right. If a doctor pulls up my chart, they are making split-second life or death decisions based on that data.
Exactly.
If the thief who stole my identity is a diabetic who is allergic to penicillin,
And you aren't.
right, and I get in a car crash, the trauma surgeon is going to withhold penicillin from me or administer insulin I don't even need.
Which could potentially kill you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You aren't just losing money. You are losing your bodily autonomy. Your biological reality is being erased.
And compounding that terror is the 4th phase, discovery lag.
Discovery lag.
Yeah. If someone steals your credit card, your bank usually texts you within 5 minutes.
Right, I get an alert on my phone.
Exactly. But there is no central clearinghouse for your medical records.
None.
None. The systems don't talk to each other in a unified way.
That's crazy.
It is. Victims often don't find out their medical identity has been stolen for years.
Years.
Years. They only discover it when they were suddenly denied life insurance for a terminal illness they don't have.
Oh my God.
Or a debt collector sues them for a $150,000 spinal fusion they never received.
That is just wild. And when the victim finally discovers this, it triggers a psychological paradox that always blows my mind.
The shame component.
Yes. The sources detail how victims of fraud and identity theft feel intense shame and self-blame.
Very common.
If you are listening to this and this has happened to you, logically you know you didn't do anything wrong.
Right. A criminal hacked a database in another state.
Exactly. Yet the victim feels embarrassed. They feel like a fool. Why does the brain do that?
It is a brilliant, albeit tragic, unconscious coping mechanism.
How is that brilliant?
Well, the underlying psychological mechanism at play here is internalizing blame.
Okay.
Human beings have a deep, fundamental evolutionary need to believe the world is generally safe and predictable.
Right. It is what allows us to leave our houses in the morning.
Exactly. If you accept the objective truth that a completely faceless criminal can destroy your life, your credit, and your medical history at random,
Yeah.
and there is absolutely nothing you could have done to stop it, you have to accept that you are completely powerless.
And powerlessness is the core of trauma.
Yes, that level of random vulnerability is a terrifying reality for the human brain to process.
It feels like standing on a trapdoor that could open at any second.
That's a perfect way to put it. So, to regain a false sense of control, the brain prefers to blame itself.
Wow.
The internal monologue becomes, I shouldn't have clicked that email link. I shouldn't have trusted that clinic.
I should have checked my credit report more often.
I am stupid.
Wow. So by blaming yourself, you are secretly tricking yourself into believing you have the power to prevent it next time.
Exactly.
If it's your fault, it means you have agency. If it's random, you have no agency.
That is the exact mechanism.
That explains so much.
But the tragic result of this internalized shame is that victims withdraw socially.
They hide.
Yes. They don't seek legal help.
Mm.
They isolate themselves from their support networks because they are ashamed to admit they were duped.
And this isolation only exacerbates the trauma.
Especially if family members dismiss it as just a money problem.
Which we know it isn't. Okay, let's transition this because the sources take a fascinating turn here.
They do. We are going deeper.
Because if medical identity theft is the brutal hijacking of your external narrative,
Yeah.
what happens when your internal narrative is hijacked before it can even fully form?
This is where we get into the really heavy stuff.
Right. Because a hacker stealing your data as an adult is one thing, but a caregiver denying your reality as a child operates on the exact same mechanism of powerlessness.
Exactly. We shift now from external systemic trauma to internal developmental psychology.
We are looking at childhood trauma.
Yes. And we need to broaden the cultural definition of trauma for our listeners here.
I think that's really important.
We aren't just talking about overt catastrophic abuse.
Right.
The research is clear that profound identity fragmentation also stems from chronic emotional neglect.
And emotional manipulation.
Yes, growing up in a family system with rigid role assignments, or experiencing a parentified childhood where you were forced to act as the emotional caretaker for the adults.
Or toxic, covertly narcissistic parents who gaslight your reality.
Exactly. It's any environment where your emotional reality, your inner Ipsy, is chronically dismissed or punished.
So let's look at the causality. What is physically and psychologically happening to a child in a threatening or emotionally invalidating environment?
Well, according to developmental psychologists like Eric Erikson, the fundamental task of childhood and adolescence is identity formation.
Right, figuring out who you are.
Exactly. To build a secure, consolidated sense of who you are, you require a period of free exploration.
You need to be able to try on different emotions.
Yes. Express different needs, make mistakes, and then commit to a set of values.
But successful identity formation has an absolute prerequisite, doesn't it?
It does. A safe environment and attuned caregivers who mirror your reality back to you.
Right. So if a child cries because they are sad, and the parent yells, "Stop crying, there's nothing to be sad about," what does the brain do?
A child in that environment quickly learns that free exploration is entirely unsafe.
Because they get punished for it.
Exactly. If expressing their true needs results in anger, rejection, or dangerous neglect,
Yeah.
the child's neurobiology prioritizes survival over authenticity.
Wow.
The genuine self that might have naturally emerged is completely suppressed.
And what takes its place?
In its place, the child develops what we call a performing self.
A performing self.
Yeah, this is a version of themselves designed solely to monitor the environment, keep the peace, earn approval, or avoid punishment.
I was trying to come up with a way to visualize this while reading the notes.
What did you come up with?
It's like a brilliant actor who has spent their entire life wearing different character outfits.
Oh, I like that.
They show up on set, they read other people's scripts, they hit their marks perfectly, they say the exact lines the director wants to hear.
They're great at it.
Right, and they even win awards for their performance.
Yeah.
But when the director finally yells, "Cut," and the crew goes home, the actor is left standing alone on an empty stage in the dark.
That's haunting.
And when they open their mouth, they literally don't know how to speak as themselves.
Because they've been playing characters for so long.
Exactly. They have forgotten, or maybe they never learned, who they actually are beneath the costumes.
That is a phenomenal analogy for what clinical psychology calls structural dissociation.
Structural dissociation.
Yeah. The actor on stage versus the empty person in the dark.
Right.
When trauma is overwhelming,
Mm.
or when chronic emotional manipulation is so pervasive that the child cannot escape it. The brain protects itself by compartmentalizing. It literally builds a wall inside the mind to survive.
I want to dig into the mechanics of that wall.
Let's do it.
How does that split actually work in the brain?
Okay, so when a person experiences inescapable threat,
Mhm.
the brain's survival centers, particularly the amygdala, go into overdrive.
Right, the alarm bell.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the prefrontal cortex,
Yeah.
the part of brain responsible for complex narrative, logic, and a unified sense of self, starts to shut down.
It just goes offline.
It has to.
Yeah.
The personality essentially divides into two primary parts to handle this impossible load.
Okay, what are they?
First, you have the apparently normal part, or the ANP.
That's the performing self, the
Yeah.
actor.
Yes, the ANP is the part of you designed to handle daily life.
Right.
It goes to school, it goes to work, it raises children, it pays bills.
It looks completely...
Highly adaptive.
Yeah.
And from the outside, it often functions flawlessly.
Wow.
People with a highly developed ANP are often incredibly successful, driven adults.
But they're hiding something.
Yes. Hidden behind the wall is the second part, the emotional part, or the EP.
The EP.
This part is stuck in trauma time.
So it's still back there.
Exactly. It holds in the memories of the abuse or neglect, the unmet childhood needs, the visceral pain, and the overwhelming grief.
So you have a boardroom executive who is crushing it at work.
Yeah,
But internally, they are carrying a terrified child who is frozen in time.
that's exactly it.
And the wall between them gets thicker and thicker because the ANP is terrified that if the EP gets out, the whole life they built will collapse.
And that is the absolute tragedy of it.
It's heartbreaking.
The ANP builds an impressive external life on a completely fractured internal foundation.
Which is why we see so many driven, successful adults who experience profound identity fragmentation.
Right.
They can manage corporate crises. They can mediate family disputes.
They're great at handling other people's problems.
Exactly. But if you sit them down in a quiet room and ask a simple, direct question like, what do you genuinely want out of life?
They freeze.
They don't just feel confused. They feel a terrifying, echoing, hollow center.
Because their entire sense of self is contingent on external performance.
They have worked so hard to build a life, they forgot to build a self.
I would rephrase that slightly.
How so?
It's not that they forgot. It's that they weren't allowed to build a self.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The environment made it too dangerous.
Yeah.
And what is crucial for our listeners to understand is that this fragmentation, this hollow center,
Yeah.
it is not a character flaw. It is not a personal weakness.
It's an adaptation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is a highly effective, deeply intelligent neurobiological adaptation.
It was a survival skill that kept you alive in childhood.
Right. But in adulthood, when you are no longer in danger, it operates as an invisible constraint.
So this brings us to the most important part of the deep dive.
The solution.
The million-dollar question. How do we fix this?
Right.
Whether your external identity has been hijacked by a hacker stealing your medical records, or your internal identity was suppressed by a traumatic childhood.
How do you rebuild it?
Exactly.
Well, the clinical consensus is that the reclamation of identity is a dual-track process.
Dual track.
Yes.
Ouch.
You cannot truly heal the internal psychological wounds without securing the external boundaries.
Okay.
And you cannot maintain external boundaries if your internal foundation is hollow.
So you have to address both the systemic reality and the psychological reality.
At the same time.
Let's start with track one. Reclaiming the external self.
Securing the perimeter.
Right, because healing here isn't just about sitting on a cushion doing mindfulness meditation.
No, not at all.
When someone has stolen your identity, healing requires aggressive, systemic action to restore your relational autonomy and societal trust.
You have to force the bureaucratic systems to acknowledge your truth.
We are talking about leveraging structural legal rights.
And the act of asserting these rights is profoundly regulating for a traumatized nervous system.
Right. Let's look at the listener's rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA.
Okay, let's break it down.
If your financial identity is compromised, the law gives you specific weapons.
First, you have the absolute right to know what is in your file.
Right. You are entitled to free, comprehensive disclosures from the major credit bureaus, especially if you have a fraud alert on your file.
But the real power is the right to dispute.
Yes.
If you find a fraudulent credit card in your file, you don't just ask nicely for it to be removed.
You formally dispute it.
And under the FCRA, the Consumer Reporting Agency is legally required to conduct a reasonable investigation, usually within 30 days.
They have to do the work.
Right. They have to go to the creditor and say, prove this account belongs to this person.
And if they can't prove it,
It must be deleted.
I love that. Furthermore, outdated negative information cannot haunt you forever.
No, it can't.
Even legitimate negative info over 7 years old or bankruptcies over 10 years old must by law be purged.
And if you are actively being targeted,
Yeah,
you have the ultimate external boundary, the security freeze.
the freeze.
You have the right to freeze your credit report at all 3 bureaus. This locks your financial identity down completely.
So the data is basically inaccessible.
Exactly. No one, not even you, can open a new account without your express multi-step authorization via a PI or password to temporarily lift the freeze.
Okay, freezing credit makes sense, but let's go back to the nightmare scenario.
Medical identity theft.
Right. What about medical identity theft? Correcting a credit report is one thing because it's just financial data.
It's just numbers.
Right. But how do you fix a contaminated medical chart?
That is much harder.
I'm looking at the legal frameworks in the stack, and it all points to IPO.
Yes. Specifically, the IPA amendment rights.
Now, this is a tool very few people know they have, right?
Almost no one knows about it.
Right.
But it is immensely powerful.
Okay, how does it work?
Under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or IPA, you have the federal legal right to request an amendment to your protected health information.
Your PHI.
Right. Maintained in what the law calls your designated record set.
Okay, I need to know exactly what a designated record set is.
It's important.
Because if I'm fighting a hospital, I want to know exactly what ground I'm standing on.
Well, the designated record set generally includes the medical and billing records a provider uses to make clinical or financial decisions about you.
So it's my charts, my lab results, my prescribed medications.
Exactly. Now, if you obtain your records and find a fraudulent diagnosis,
Let's say a history of opioid addiction that actually belongs to the identity thief.
right, you must submit a highly specific written request for an amendment.
I can't just call the front desk.
No, you cannot just call the front desk. It has to be formal.
What needs to be in that letter?
You need to identify the exact entry.
Okay.
You provide the date of the clinical note, the authoring physician, the specific location in the chart, and you state precisely why it is inaccurate.
Be as detailed as possible.
Yes. You also provide supporting documentation if you have it. For instance, proof from police records that you were out of the country when the medical procedure took place.
Okay. And once they get this letter, how do they actually fix it?
Well, that's the tricky part.
Because earlier you mentioned they rarely just hit the delete key. Why won't they just erase the fake data?
It comes down to clinical integrity, medical malpractice fears, and strict audit trail laws.
So they're scared of lawsuits.
Hospitals are terrified of deleting data because if it turns out the data was accurate
Right.
and a subsequent doctor makes a mistake because the data was missing, the hospital is liable.
Ah, I see. Furthermore, electronic health record systems are designed to track every keystroke.
Exactly. You can't just erase things without a trace.
So what do they do instead?
Well, the law requires them to respond to your request within 60 calendar days.
60 days.
They can request one 30-day extension, but they must notify you in writing as to why.
And if they agree with you?
If they accept your amendment, they append or link the correction to the original entry.
Oh, I see.
So the record will show the original fraudulent note, but immediately attached to it will be a glaring amendment stating, patient has proven this entry is inaccurate and belongs to an unauthorized third party.
That's pretty solid.
And they're also required to make reasonable efforts to notify anyone who previously received the incorrect information.
But what if they fight back?
That happens.
What if the hospital's privacy officer denies your request? What if they say, no, we believe this fraudulent drug history is actually yours, and we aren't changing the chart?
This is where you assert your ultimate right.
What's that?
If denied, you have the right to submit a statement of disagreement.
A statement of disagreement.
Yes. This is a formal, written statement drafted by you explaining your dispute in detail.
Okay.
And by federal law, the medical entity must append your statement of disagreement to your record.
They have to include it.
They are legally forced to carry your voice.
Wow.
And critically, that statement of disagreement must accompany all future medical disclosures of that disputed information.
So any future doctor who requests your file will see the hospital's note, and immediately underneath it, they will see your written defense.
Yes. It travels with the file.
That is incredibly empowering.
There is one minor exception in ANAPAY. Psychotherapy notes kept separately by a mental health professional are not subject to the amendment right.
Right.
But for everything else in your designated record set, you have power.
I want to pause here and connect this back to the psychology.
Yeah, let's tie it together.
Because the deeper lesson in this stack of research is so vital.
It really is.
Sitting on the phone with credit bureaus, mailing certified letters to hospital privacy officers, demanding audit trails.
Sounds awful.
It sounds like administrative torture. It sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting.
But clinically, it is actually a deeply therapeutic act, isn't it?
It is the most therapeutic thing you can do.
Taking these bureaucratic steps is the physical, behavioral act of reclaiming your agency.
Yes.
As we said earlier, powerlessness is the core of trauma.
Right.
So action is the antidote to helplessness.
Exactly.
When you send that certified letter, you are telling the world, I dictate my identity, you do not.
I couldn't agree more. Asserting your legal rights is the first behavioral proof to your own brain that you are no longer the helpless victim you once were.
You are securing the perimeter.
Yes, which transitions us perfectly to track 2 of the reclamation process.
Rebuilding the internal architecture of the mind.
Right. Once the external perimeter is secured, how do we strengthen the self?
Well, we bring in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Exactly.
Now, our audience is smart. They know what CBT is.
Sure.
But the research highlights a specific rule for identity reconstruction. Self-esteem and identity are not rebuilt by reading.
No, they are not.
They are rebuilt by doing.
It requires action.
I like to think of it like going to the gym.
That's a good comparison.
A muscle doesn't grow by watching fitness videos on YouTube.
Nope.
And a fractured identity doesn't solidify just by thinking about it in a quiet room. Consistency beats intensity.
CBT provides structured, daily, behavioral exercises that force the brain to log empirical data of your competence.
Empirical data.
Yes, the goal is to build new neural pathways.
Okay, let's look at 5 specific techniques from the literature.
Let's do it.
The first and most foundational is the Daily Wins Journal.
Very powerful tool.
This sounds simple, almost too simple. Every evening, you write down 3 things you did well that day.
Right.
Not huge achievements. We aren't talking about winning a Nobel Prize.
No, small things.
Right, small things. I spoke up in a meeting when I disagreed.
Or, I cooked a healthy dinner even though I was exhausted.
I didn't apologize when someone bumped into me on the street.
Exactly. And the mechanism behind why this works is fascinating.
Why does it work?
We have to look at evolutionary biology.
Okay.
The human brain is hardwired with a negativity bias.
Right.
It naturally clings to failures, insults, and dangers while ignoring successes to protect us from future threats.
It's scanning for predators.
Yes. A traumatized brain is especially stuck in this confirmation bias, scanning the environment only for evidence of its own brokenness or danger.
Which makes sense if you were raised in a toxic environment where you had to be hypervigilant.
Exactly. The Daily Wins Journal creates a deliberate counterweight.
Over time, you build a physical, undeniable case file against your inner critic.
Yes, you do.
All right, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Please do.
Because when I read this, my immediate thought was, isn't a Daily Wins Journal just toxic positivity?
A lot of people think that.
Right. Isn't it just wearing rose-colored glasses, ignoring the very real trauma you've been through, and pasting a fake smile on your face?
That is a very common pushback.
Yeah.
And the clinical distinction is incredibly important.
What is the distinction?
Toxic positivity is fundamentally delusion.
Delusion.
It is repeating mantras you don't actually believe, like everything is awesome or trauma made me stronger, when you actually feel terrible.
When you really feel like garbage.
Right. The Daily Wins Journal is not delusion. It is evidence gathering.
Evidence gathering. So it's more like being a scientist in your own life.
Yes. You are writing down literal, verifiable facts of your competence.
Did you speak up in the meeting?
Yes, that is a fact.
Did you cook dinner?
Yes, that is a fact.
You are forcing your neural pathways to acknowledge objective reality rather than the distorted hyper-negative lens of trauma.
You are retraining the brain's filtering system.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about data, not delusion.
Exactly.
Technique number 2, cognitive restructuring, specifically the 4-column method.
I love this one.
I do too, because it treats thoughts like suspects in a lineup.
It really does. When a strong negative thought arises, you don't just accept it.
No.
You draw 4 columns on a piece of paper.
Okay.
Column 1, the situation. Let's say, my boss walked past my desk and didn't say hi to me.
Column 2, the automatic thought, I am incompetent, I'm going to be fired, they hate me.
Right, the spiral. Column 3, evidence for and against this thought.
And column 4, the alternative thought.
Exactly.
So by putting it on paper, you externalize the thought. You strip it of its emotional weight.
Yes.
It goes from being an indisputable truth that ruins your entire nervous system to just being a hypothesis that you can cross-examine.
That's exactly how it works.
What's the evidence against the thought? Well, my boss was looking at his phone and walking fast. He probably just didn't see me.
Exactly. Technique 3 pushes this even further into behavior.
The discomfort zone challenge.
Right. Trauma and identity fragmentation are fueled by avoidance behaviors.
Because you're scared.
Yes. To reverse that, you do one slightly uncomfortable thing a day.
Like what?
Say hi to a stranger. Order something different at the restaurant. Send an email you've been putting off.
Right. And each time you survive the discomfort without the world ending, your brain records it as proof of your capability.
The AMP and EP start to realize they can handle reality together.
Technique 4 is structural.
Yeah.
The DESC technique for self-assertion. DESC. Describe, express, specify, conclude.
This is a structural formula for finding your voice when you've been silenced.
So how does it work in practice?
Well, D, describe the situation factually. When you make decisions about the project without consulting me.
E, express your feeling using an I statement. I feel sidelined and frustrated.
S, specify what you want. I'd like us to discuss major changes together moving forward.
See conclude with the benefits. That way, we'll both be satisfied with the outcome and avoid rework.
Right. It takes the emotion out of the confrontation and makes it a boundary-setting exercise.
It's so clean. And finally, technique 5 is the heavy hitter, the downward arrow technique to uncover core beliefs.
This is how you get behind the wall of structural dissociation.
Right. You start with a surface thought, like, I made a mistake on that report.
Then you ask yourself, if that were true, what does that mean about me?
You might answer, it means I'm bad at my job.
Then you ask it again. If I'm bad at my job, what does that mean about me?
You keep digging down following the arrow until you hit the bedrock.
And usually, the bedrock is a core belief installed during childhood trauma.
Like, I am worthless, or I am fundamentally unlovable.
Exactly. Once you identify that core belief, you can methodically begin to dismantle it using the evidence you've been gathering.
But this raises an incredibly important clinical threshold.
It does. We have to be honest with our listeners.
Yeah. What happens when CBT isn't enough?
Right.
What happens when you are so deeply fused to the identity of being broken, or the trauma of the identity theft was so profound that no amount of logic, no amount of 4-column journaling can shake it?
This is where we reach the level of transcendence in the research.
Okay, transcendent.
We bring in ACT acceptance and commitment therapy.
ACT, I love this part.
ACT focuses on a concept called psychological flexibility.
Okay.
And to understand this, we have to return to the two different experiences of the self we touched on earlier, but look at them through a clinical lens.
Self as content versus self as context.
Yes.
Most of us operate entirely from self as content.
We do.
We fuse our identity with our social scripts, our thoughts, and our pain.
We say, I am my anxiety. I am a victim of fraud. I am broken from my childhood.
Right, your identity becomes this rigid documentary of all your worst moments and intrusive thoughts.
But ACT introduces self as context.
Which is what?
This is the observing self. The transcendent realization is this. You are not your thoughts.
Right.
You are not your trauma. You are not the medical record a hacker created.
So what are you?
You are the stable, unchanging consciousness in which those experiences occur.
The usual metaphor in ACT is the sky and the weather.
Right, let's break that down.
Your thoughts, your traumas, and your emotions are the weather. The clouds, the thunderstorms, the hurricanes.
Exactly.
But the observing self, the self as context, is the sky.
Yes.
No matter how violent the hurricane, no matter how dark the storm clouds get, the sky itself cannot be damaged by the weather.
Never. The sky just holds the weather.
That is a profound way to visualize it.
It really is. Realizing you are the sky allows for what ACT calls cognitive diffusion. Yeah. Instead of saying, I am a failure, you learn to say, I am having the thought that I'm a failure.
You create psychological distance between the consciousness and the event.
Exactly.
Now, it sounds like a slight shift in semantics, just adding a few words. But neurologically, the research says this is massive.
Well, it completely shifts brain activity.
Ow.
Stepping into the observing self activates metacognition, thinking about thinking.
Okay.
This engages the prefrontal cortex and literally calms the amygdala, the brain's threat center.
So it turns off the alarm.
Exactly. It allows the brain to finally process the trauma as a historical event rather than an ongoing active threat.
It breaks the illusion that the trauma is the identity.
Yes.
Once you realize you are the sky, you can stop drowning in the storm. You can finally become the author of your own story again.
Which brings our deep dive full circle back to Paul Ricoeur and narrative psychology.
We are back to the Ipsy.
Yes. Authoring the new self requires what behavioral scientists call intentional change theory.
Intentional change theory.
This is the process of moving away from your current self, which is often a negative emotional attractor born of victimization, fraud, or childhood trauma.
Right.
And deliberately moving toward an ideal self, a positive emotional attractor.
It requires transformational processing.
Exactly.
You have to shift your internal narrative from a victimic storyline to an agentic storyline.
Agentic meaning you have agency, you have power.
This deeply mirrors the classic hero's journey or quest narrative in literature, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. In healthy psychological recovery, illness, trauma, and identity theft are reframed.
They are no longer the things that destroyed you.
No, they become the catalysts for profound personal transformation.
You are the protagonist overcoming the abyss.
The trauma becomes a chapter in your book, not the title of the book.
I love that. But there is a hidden truth here that we have to talk about before we wrap up.
Yeah, there is.
Because rebuilding identity isn't just triumphant music and heroic quests.
No, it's not a movie.
Right. It is not a shiny, happy process. It requires intense, gut-wrenching grief.
Yes. Rebuilding requires mourning.
And this grief is not self-pity, right?
Not at all. As trauma clinicians point out, it is a vital clearing mechanism.
A clearing mechanism.
If you want to integrate the structural dissociation, if you want the ANP and EP to merge, you have to mourn.
You have to mourn the childhood you didn't get.
Yes, you have to mourn the time and energy you lost to the performing self.
You have to mourn the profound sense of safety that the identity thief stole from you when they ruined your medical records.
Because if you don't grieve, you are just putting a new coat of paint on a cracked foundation.
You have to clear the space so the genuine self has room to emerge.
Exactly. And reconnecting with your physical body is essential here.
Right. Because the body holds the tension and the truth that the performing mind tries so hard to hide.
The self that was suppressed by an invalidating family, the identity that was stolen by a faceless hacker,
Yeah.
it didn't disappear forever. It has just been waiting, patiently, persistently, waiting for the conditions that would finally make it safe enough to emerge.
That gives me so much hope. So let's synthesize this incredible journey we've been on today.
It's been quite a ride.
We started by asking a seemingly simple question. Who are you?
Right.
We explored how identity isn't a static soul, but a dynamic process constructed through memory and narrative.
We looked at how brutally it can be fractured, whether by the external systemic betrayal of a hacker rewriting your medical history.
Or the internal compartmentalization caused by childhood emotional manipulation and trauma.
Exactly.
We learned that reclaiming that identity is a complex, dual-track process.
It requires fierce forensic boundary setting, using tools like the FCRA and HIPAA amendment rights to force massive bureaucratic systems to respect your truth and purge the foreign data.
And it requires intentional cognitive rewiring.
Using CBT to build daily, empirical evidence of your competence.
And ACT to achieve the transcendent realization that you are the observing self, not the trauma passing through you.
You are the sky watching the weather.
And that brings us to our final thought for this deep dive.
Yeah.
If your identity is both a structural, legal paper trail and an ongoing, deeply personal psychological story,
You possess incredible power over both.
your plot is not fixed. The manuscript is back in your hands.
The past is simply the chapters that have already been written.
Right.
So, what is the very next sentence you are going to write in the story of who you are?